Welcome to the NASCAR playoffs. After a grueling 26 race regular season, 16 of the sport's brightest stars found victory or consistent success that allowed them to fight for a title over these last 10 races of the year. Tonight, that starts with a daunting dance with the Lady in Black, Darlington Raceway. Built in 1950, Darlington's unique turns serve as a test of bravery for most, allowing the Lady in Black to leave her mark on racers that push a little too hard. The Southern 500 represents the final crown jewel on the NASCAR calendar. While the 16 playoff drivers look to punch their ticket to the next round, the remaining 20 stars of the NASCAR Cup Series look to etch their names in the history books as a winner of NASCAR's oldest major. With 500 miles and 367 laps ahead this evening, the track Too Tough to Tame aims to claim more victims and reward her latest champion.
And thank you so much, Tanner Smith, from Pitbox Press, editor. Check out that website. And we encourage everyone check out the link in the chat room as well to the Pitbox Press latest article as we get into the show as well. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors, Joe Sam. I am sleep deprived from my weekend, so I apologize to everyone. A busy weekend on Portland. Thanks to our Patreon investors, Colin, the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew for investing in the Grid Network each and every month, helping everyone get to the track. A big thank you to everyone for tuning in throughout the Portland race weekend. And just want to say a big welcome to everyone in the chat room. I already see John Bender saying go Briscoe. So I guess we know who his pick will be. So now let's get started with the show. But before we get further into NASCAR, we do want to bring up a little bit of some breaking news that occurred about 20 minutes ago. Alex Palou finished second at the NTT IndyCar race at Nashville Superspeedway and Music City Grand Prix. He is a four-time IndyCar Series champion and now the 2025 Grid Ranking World Champion with a final score of 21.60. He will not be caught up by anybody. He is the first NTT IndyCar Series driver to win the Grid Ranking World Championship. 8 wins, 13 podiums, 14 top 5s, 16 top 10s. That is an 88% top 10 finish rate, 82% top 5 finish rate. Earliest the grid ranking has ever been clinched. So big congratulations to Alex Palou. More on that on our wrap-up show Monday. So you don't miss that. Of course, we're going to be on the air tomorrow since we're going to be up pretty late watching the Southern 500. As you mentioned, Tanner, older than the Daytona 500 by many the most challenging crown jewel race in the NASCAR Cup Series season. And overall, this track is very unique. Egg-shaped racetrack to not disturb Ramsey Pond and made this track challenging. Turns 3 and 4 are much tougher. The groove is right up against a wall. Used to be the concrete wall. Now it's a Safebury, but you still get that Darlington stripe. And if you get out that corner cleanly, you could be taking the checker flag, but it's not an easy race to win. The pole sitter has plenty of experience here. Denny Hamlin, however, there are many split on whether they want to see Denny Hamlin win this race, if they want to see 2311 be successful in this playoff run, or even get close to that championship four. This is going to be something very interesting to see after what happened at the Thursday court injunction here in Tyler Reddick. He is starting 4th, but Wallace, his teammate who got to win already, is starting 8th. Tanner, starting with you, and I'll put the link to your article on Pitbox Press in the chat room. How likely is it that 2311 or Hamlin will win, and how significant of a statement will that be, considering we're just days after the court hearing?
Well, Joe, I'll start with the likelihood of any of those 3 playoff drivers to win. Obviously, we only exclude Riley Herbst from this conversation because he has not won and is not in the playoffs, but he will also be fielding the number 35 car for 2311 Racing, their 3rd entry. As for each of 2311 and Hamlin possibly going to win this race tonight. Hamlin has a very exceptional starting spot. Obviously, he'll have the best view coming to the green today and is the spring winner of this race after some shenanigans in the final 5 laps that led to a late race pit stop where his team was able to get him out first. I obviously think that Hamlin has an extremely solid shot to win tonight as long as he and crew chief Chris Gale can keep up with the track throughout the night. And if memory serves, I believe Gale already has a win here with Eric Jones back in 2019, so it's not like he doesn't know how to get around this racetrack. As far as Tyler Reddick is concerned, he is extremely hungry for a victory, so I expect him to go out there and compete and try to launch himself into the round of 12 early by getting a win this evening. I do think that he and Billy Scott, his crew chief, have been struggling this season to track, but at the end of the day, I think that he is an extremely strong competitor and someone that should be looked at as a contender this evening. And finally, we have Bubba Wallace. I think that Bubba has had very strong runs here in the next-gen era since he moved over to 2311, and his racecraft and his pace have only improved year over year, so I think that he definitely should have a solid shot to win as well, assuming he and Charles Denique can keep up with the racetrack a little bit better than they did in the spring. Now, moving over to the lawsuit portion of this question, I did write an article that we have linked throughout our description here about some of the fallout from what happened on Thursday afternoon in the courtroom. But I do think that if either of those 3 drivers or, even if Riley Herbst managed to go out and get a win tonight, I think it would make an extreme statement. I think that every time we've had like a major landmark in this lawsuit, it seems that Hamlin or Wallace have won. You look back at the removal of the original preliminary injunction that the teams lost upon appeal. Hamlin won Dover, literally the race after that, and their first races as non-chartered cars, Bubba Wallace went out and won the Brickyard 400. Not only that, you go back to, I believe, Michigan in June. I think there was another, significant landmark in the case at that point. I think that was when Discovery started really kicking into high gear, and Hamlin won that race. So there does seem to be a bit of a trend between these 3 guys, showing up to the track when things off the track are not going as ideally as they could. So I wouldn't really put it past them to go out there and claim another crown jewel tonight. And I think that they'll be extra motivated to, kind of prove their point in the court of law and in the court of public opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I can agree 100% with what Tanner said there. And it is funny, I was going to bring that up as well, is it seems like every time there's some major decision in this court case, Denny Hamlin wins or one of his cars, in case Bubba Wallace in that case at the Brickyard 400. So I think that's funny. So I think definitely, especially with how good the guys have really been at Darlington, Bubba's cooled off a little bit. But I remember, I believe he had like 2 straight top 5s or 2 straight top 10s at least when he first came over to 2311 in the next-gen era at this track. So, and then Tyler Reddick is one of the best here without a win. I believe he has the 4th lowest average finish among all drivers in the next-gen era at Darlington, and it's the 2nd lowest without a win. He is behind Christopher Bell, who still surprisingly has not won here yet at Darlington, and then obviously William Byron and Denny Hamlin has the 3rd best average finish here. So for that, I think it would be a huge statement. I think it would be a really funny statement. Don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people might. I think if it was another team in this case that wasn't 2311, I think if it was someone like Hendrick Motorsports, I think if it was someone like Team Penske that was suing NASCAR instead of 2311 or Front Row Motorsports, I think this whole narrative would be completely different, and I think a lot of the fans would have a different attitude towards what's going on. But unfortunately, Denny Hamlin is not very well liked. I think a lot of it's because he's one of the best to ever do it in the sport. Bubba Wallace is not liked for reasons I'm not going to get into because of Facebook boomers and stuff like that. But you know what I mean when it comes to that. Tyler Reddick, I don't know, and then Riley Herbst, people forget he exists. But when it comes to those, I'm going to say those 3, no offense to Riley Herbst, but even let's include Riley Herbst. If one of those 4 guys could win, whether it's Hamlin, Reddick, Bubba, or Riley Herbst, I think it would be a huge statement to show that no matter what NASCAR, it seems like, continues to throw or whatever comes out in Discovery, it doesn't seem like it is affecting 2311 that much. Maybe front row on the other side of things, they have a lot of all of their cars are, I believe, like 27th or worse or something in the playoffs. I think Zane Smith might be a little higher than that. But I think I could argue, though, against my own point when I say I think Reddick's been affected dramatically by this. And I think tonight would be the perfect example, one of his best tracks he hasn't had a win at yet, that he can go out and flip the script on a season that doesn't seem that bad on paper when you consider where Reddick was in the standings, the regular season standings. But at the same time, it just seems like he's been so down on himself. And then there were reports that came out that he possibly told 2311 that he can enact a part of his contract clause because they're not a charter team, that he could leave. So I think there's a lot going on in that Reddick camp, but it wouldn't shock me one bit if we saw him in victory lane just by his talent and his ability to switch the script up.
Yeah, Joe, if you don't mind, I'd like to cut back in. I think front row in particular has a few, outstanding circumstances. They lost, in my opinion, their best driver and best crew chief in the offseason and expanded to 3 cars. I think that the expansion to 3 cars may have been affecting 2311 as well to some extent, especially with the 45 team being a little bit less strong than last year. But front row has, unfortunately, 3 drivers that have yet to find true enduring success in the NASCAR Cup Series. So I think that their struggles are a little bit more emblematic of their circumstances more so than the court case itself, and especially Zane Smith, who I feel like has had probably 7 or 8 really good runs in the regular season, ruined by like late restarts and people wrecking him. So I feel like front row, while they have struggled, I don't know if it's necessarily lawsuit related. It may just be from, natural growth, more or less.
Yeah, I'm amazed at 2311, like you've all said. It seems when things are not going good, they somehow rise up. Here they are. I almost get a sense they must have something within their culture, and of course, Denny Hamlin being part of that culture, that when there's things in our way, we overcome it, we rise up, because that's what they just seem to do. This could easily just be a distraction. Tyler Reddick, we know how Richmond was going until he got into the wall. That could have been a much different story. That did not occur. This race, last year he put in a gutsy effort because he was sick with, I think, food poisoning or something. I recall, claimed that regular season championship last year. I think he could have a good, some might say a breakout race, but really just what we expect from Tyler Reddick throughout the season. We just haven't seen those results. Bubba Wallace, a contender, and Denny Hamlin has to be one of the favorites. The defended winner of this race, though, Chase Briscoe, he shocked the world last year in that 14 car getting the win here. Now he's in the 19 car. We've heard him talk about the difference in going from Stewart-Haas racing to Joe Gibbs racing, how the car's much more drivable. He can be much more flat out. He is 8th in the playoff grid. Following Darlington, of course, we have Gateway and Bristol. Matthew, is Briscoe, in case he's unable to win today at Darlington, how confident are you that he will advance to the round of 12?
Very. That's really it. I think Chase Briscoe continues to not get enough credit I think he deserves. I know he's in arguably one of the best cars in the field, but for him to have a win and then 10 top 5 finishes, that coming from obviously Stewart-Haas Racing, that's just absolutely insane. I feel like we still haven't seen peak Briscoe yet, and I think he'll only get better in time. And I think if he can continue to be in that 19 car, I truly believe he will contend for more wins every single week, because he's one of the few drivers I still feel like when you overlook him a lot, regardless of if he starts on pole, which he has a lot this season. I'm just looking 6 times to be exact. That is insane. And I am kind of upset that Hamlin got him this week, because he would have made history by being the first driver in NASCAR Cup Series history to start on pole for every single Crown Jewel event. That would have been awesome. But unfortunately, his teammate got him just by a little bit. But I think just with Briscoe's success, when hearing him talk, I believe it was the Dale Jr. download he was on, or some Dirty Mo Media production, he mentioned the Stewart-Haas cars. and how they drive so much differently. And you really don't think the way the next gen is set up, how there could be that much difference between, say, a second tier Ford team and the best Toyota team. But clearly there was, talking about how at certain tracks he could be 100% full throttle in the Gibbs car, but in the Stewart-Haas equipment he had to lift out of the throttle. That's crazy. And he still won at one of the toughest tracks, arguably the toughest track on the circuit in terms of ovals. So, yeah, I'm very confident in Chase Briscoe. I think at Darlington, Gateway, Bristol, I think he could be a contender each week. Then when you look at my bracket, after that, I don't know what happens to Chase Briscoe, but I think he could be truly a sleeper pick in this playoff, especially this first round. I wouldn't be surprised if he went out and won today.
Conversely, I think that it's important to remember who the 19 team is, and they have not, in the next-gen era, finished a Darlington race better than 18th. Not good. And that includes the spring where Briscoe was in the car. I say this because James Small, and I really hate to keep harping against the guy because I do think he has a great engineering mind and very clearly worthy of having a job at Joe Gibbs Racing, but unfortunately, it just seems that he has a penchant for not being able to keep up with racetracks. And in a race like this, where you have to keep up with the racetrack to the tightest possible degree, this is going to be a track where I think they're going to struggle. Now, with that said, I do agree that Briscoe and Small have been a lot stronger, especially throughout the summer. They set a very torrid pace throughout the last couple of months, and I feel like they should be considered one of the stronger contenders to possibly even make the Final Four. But tonight, I just don't see it. I don't see them keeping up with the track. I don't see them, contending for this win. I do see them getting stage points in the first two stages, unless they have some sort of problem on pit road that's, out anybody's control, something like that. But at the same time, I think Gateway will be really, really strong for them. I think that is a track that combines Briscoe's skill set on, smaller, flatter ovals, as well as, they'll be able to glean from Christopher Bell's data from last year where he seemed to have the strongest car coming to the end until his engine started to give out. And then you have Bristol, where I think that they should be able to be strong, or at least strong enough to advance. But we got to remember again who this 19 team is. And the 19 team last year was a first-round exit. Now, granted, I think that there was a lot of things that went into that, but, especially driver error like lap 3 last year at Darlington, where Truex killed his car as well as Ryan Blaney's randomly at the beginning of the event. So, I think that if Briscoe can keep the wheels on the car and keep themselves on the lead lap, then today is going to be a win. But that's something they really couldn't do in the spring, if you remember. So I'm a little bit more reserved on their chances to win today than you are, Matthew.
It's going to be a lot of fun, I think, to see how Briscoe does. I'm pretty excited. I felt in the past I was critical of Briscoe that if he was having a good race, he would overdrive, crash out. But then after seeing the comments he made of how with a Stewart-Haas racing car, he had to lift off of the gas more often, where here he could go flat out, it's better to drive. I'm starting to feel like that team could start peaking right now, and the Southern 500 could be a good testament of where that team is. But like you said, Tanner, the crew chief has to adapt to that evolving track. 500 miles at Darlington, this track is going to change a lot. We're going to see the handling change, the groove might change, the tire wear. You get into the Darlington wall, get that stripe, your car might handle different. It's going to be very interesting. But if they pass this test with a win, I think everybody got to watch out for them. The first back playoff driver in the grid, though, Alex Bowman, 29th. Now, we all know, had Blaney not been ahead of the 3 other cars in that forward wide finish by feet, Blaney could be sitting, Bowman could easily be sitting out of the playoffs, but he is in just barely because he crashed out early at Daytona. Bowman knows he has good equipment. I mean, he's part of Hendrick Motorsports. How many teams wish they had the resources like Hendrick Motorsports? How many drivers wish they had a role like Bowman? But with Bowman's spot, of course, we always talk about you're behind Chase Elliott, you're behind Kyle Larson, you're behind William Byron. You're sort of seen as that fourth driver. Tanner, what would Bowman and his team be focusing on today? Is it going to be stage points to try to climb up, just getting that win to just secure themselves into the round of 12? Or just focus on racing the racetrack like we talk about Darlington often, picking up one position at a time?
Joe, I think it would be a different conversation if this was literally any other track opening up the playoffs. But I think if you're Alex Bowman and the 48 team, you need to focus on just, making sure you stay on the lead lap in stage one, pick off cars ahead of you one at a time, and just, survive more or less. I think that a key thing that nobody is really pointing to in all of this is we did practice and qualifying for an evening to night cup race at 11 o'clock in the morning. I don't really think that whatever we got from practice and qualifying is truly going to be indicative of what we're going to see tonight. So I have harped against this for years that NASCAR, if we're going to host a race at a certain time of day, we should probably host practice also at that similar time of day to get a bit more of an accurate reading of what the track is going to look like and react to 40 cars flying across it. So with that said, I think that if Alex Bowman and Blake Harris can come together and create a good strategy for how to make sure they stay on the lead lap throughout the first stage, they'll be in a really good spot to continue to advance through the field through the following two stages and hopefully have a really good shot at a fantastic finish for the 48 team.
Yeah, for me, Alex Bowman obviously was just a couple of mere feet of not even being a playoff driver, which is funny considering how last year he got eliminated by being disqualified. And then that's how Joey Logano ended up making it to the round of 8 and then inevitably the champion. His comments are very funny about the playoff format if you guys want to check that out on social media. But for Bowman, I think he's got to do something that he has only done twice, I believe, in the next-gen era, and that is score stage points at Darlington. Looking at his results, he was 10th in stage 2 last time out, and then you have to go all the way back to 2022 when he was 7th in stage 2 as well. If you had 2020 Bowman at Darlington, he was incredible. I would be saying he could go for the win, not a worry in the world. But with just how he's done here, he hasn't had any luck. And that's unfortunately with Alex Bowman. I think we've seen times where even I believe it was before last week at Daytona, he had like the most points scored in the NASCAR Cup Series over the course of like the previous like 6 races or something like that. You'll have to check like NASCAR Insights on that, or Daniel Cespedes has a couple graphics on social media if you want to check that out. He put together something cool. So that shows that Alex Bowman can get hot and score points. And I think in order for him to advance, he needs to go out and score stage points, because I feel like there are some drivers who are significantly ahead of him currently in the way the playoff standings format who don't score stage points. I'm not going to mention who, but I think you guys can take hints looking at who scores stage points and who doesn't. But I think Bowman just got to go out there and try to score as many points as possible. I think he's got to be in points mode, pretty much. I guess points racing, I should say. But yeah, if you can get a win, you can get a win. But I think you have to go one position at a time, try to stay up in the top 10 as much as you can, and bank on other drivers' mistakes. Unfortunately, they had to bank on other drivers' mistakes last week, and they were involved in an accident. So for him, like I said, I think Bowman can really make it to the next round, but he has to go points racing. Obviously, him not having a win didn't help him in these playoff standings. And I believe he starts the furthest back, then I believe he is last in terms of the way the playoff format is. So good luck to Alex Bowman. That's all. I'll finish that point. But yeah, I think points racing is what he's got to go do.
Point racing, that will be a big way to get those stage points. I mean, we're talking single-digit margins here, so every little point's going to add up. This track, though, it is something else where when you look at the playoff field and who has won the Southern 500, 3 drivers only: Briscoe, Larson, and Hamlin. Now you look at the spring race, so outside the Southern 500, you got William Byron, you got Joey Logano. But still, just 5 drivers out of 16. We talk about how challenging this race is to win. The spring race, 400 miles. Now you add in another 500 miles, plenty of pit stops because the abrasive nature of this track, the wear it does on the tire. Is there any playoff driver that hasn't won here yet that you think could win? Or is it just really the past 5 drivers you're looking at, Matthew?
Honestly, Joe, I truly believe we could see maybe 12 of the playoff drivers total out of the 16 that could probably win here, just by the way it's gone. Like, if you look at the list, I am more surprised that Christopher Bell and Ryan Blaney have yet to win at Darlington. Those are 2 guys, without a doubt, 100% I think could get it done. Chase Elliott's another one of those. Bubba Wallace has shown promise at these types of tracks. I think he could get it done. And then you look at other guys. I think Josh Berry, I believe he was 3rd here a couple of years ago, or even this past spring race. He's another guy. I think if he wants to play sleeper, this is the track he's going to do it at. And then Reddick, another one, I talked about him earlier. Reddick, I'm very confident in. If he wants to turn it around, he can do it at Darlington. He's come oh so close many, many times. Then another one, Bowman. He's finished 2nd here before. I think Bowman could get it done. I'm not as confident in Austin Dillon, obviously. Ross Chastain, Trackhouse, as much as they've won a lot of races this year, they really have not shown any speed at all on ovals besides Charlotte, which completely different. I feel like if you're trying to compare it to stuff where Ross started last, they just had the setup right, and they 100% deserve that. And then road course is a whole other story with Shane Van Gisbergen. So he's another one, SVG. I don't think he'll have a chance to win tonight, but that would be the funniest thing to possibly happen if he does get it done. And then, yeah, I think I went through all the drivers there. So I really think, guys, like, of all the 16 playoff drivers, I think 12 of them could really get it done tonight. However, I would probably focus looking at that. You know, Hamlin's probably the favorite, Larson, and then, yeah, that's where I'll go. I think you're probably better if you pick one of the guys who have already won here. I'm probably not going to do that, but I wouldn't be surprised if those other 7 that I had mentioned that are in the playoffs that haven't won here could get it done.
I've already gone through what I think the 23-11 guys who haven't won here, what I think they can do, so I'm just going to go ahead and leave them alone. Ryan Blaney, I think, should have won here in the spring, but unfortunately Kyle Larson doesn't know what the brake pedal is until he really needs it, and then he stomps on it in front of other people. So that kind of took him out of winning that race once his pit crew unfortunately dropped the ball. Now, as far as some of the other drivers listed here that aren't winners, Christopher Bell, I actually struggle with Christopher Bell a little bit. I haven't really seen him win like a true long race. Obviously, you could point to his Coke 600 win from last year, but that ended, I believe, 225 miles short of making it, a full race. So I can't really say that he was probably going to win that race regardless. SVG, no chance, no offense. Chase Elliott hasn't really been strong here in the next gen era, unfortunately, and I am not truly confident in how the 9 team's running at the moment to really give them a solid vote of confidence. We already talked about Briscoe. Austin Cindric, I don't think he's going to go out and win necessarily, but he has won Crown Jewel in the past, and if you still count the Talladega 500 as a Crown Jewel, he does have another one. So he does know how to get it done in big moments if he's given the opportunity. Ross Chastain showed speed here in the first few years of the next gen era, but hasn't quite shown that speed since his win at the Coke 600. But he does show, like Cindric, that if put in a big moment with, all the cards on the table, he can go out there and get that W. Josh Berry, I think he is going to sneak up on people here in this first round. These tracks all line up very well for him. If memory serves, he was running on the top 5 earlier in the spring this year with that sick Jim Clark livery, but unfortunately he got loose coming out of turn number 2, I believe, underneath another car and wound up in the inside wall. So as long as he doesn't replicate that mistake, I imagine he should be able to run up front. Austin Dillon, while I don't think he has a chance, I think if you get tires at the end of the race and they're fresher than the people ahead of you, you do have an inherent advantage over them. Not only that, Dillon did have that one solid run here back in 2020 where had it been for maybe another lap or two, he might have been able to get past Kevin Harvick, but unfortunately the race ended. And Alex Bowman, I think that Bowman does have a solid shot to maybe pull off an upset tonight, assuming a couple things break his way. I think that the 48 team had a really good stretch to end the summer. Not only that, they had a really strong run at Richmond where tire conservation was a huge focus. So I could definitely see him rising through the pack throughout the night, maybe catching a lucky break or two and finding himself in contention. I mean, again, we talked about it just a moment ago. He's in Hendrick equipment, so the expectation is to go out and win races. And coming out of here with a crown jewel would be a very, very, very great way to reaffirm your spot at Hendrick Motorsports if you're Alex Bowman.
Great insight. One of the things that stood out when you were talking about Christopher Bell, he has not won a race since his 3 in a row very early in the season.
Indeed.
It's just sort of amazing because I remember we were going to I believe it was Las Vegas, where he was trying to get 4 in a row, thinking he's going to be somebody that's going to be hard to beat. Vegas looked good. Okay, he'll bounce back. He had some good runs here and there, but has just not been in victory lane. And you look at all the drivers that have gone to victory, so many single digits. Then 3 win drivers. Then, of course, Denny Hamlin leading everybody's SVG with his win total. It's going to be very interesting to see what's going to happen at Darlington. I think I will lean towards those top 5 right now that we talked about that have won the Southern 500, or the two drivers that have won the spring: Byron, Logano, Larson, Hamlin, Briscoe. But I do like the idea of Blaney, always a contender. Josh Berry, a good qualifying effort, so he's starting up front. So if he could bring that car home in one piece, which sometimes I feel, whether it's he gets caught up in somebody's mess, a mistake, or as we've seen a couple times, pit road mistakes, they just seem to take themselves out of contention. But if he has a good run, somebody worth watching. Chase Elliott, right now, he is in 7th place. You go down to 16th place. The interval is all single digits. So we're talking positions on the track. If you have an early spin, you'll all of a sudden, if your Chase Elliott went from 5 above to well below. Right now, Berry, Reddick, Dillon, and Bowman are your 4 outside the top 12. We posted on social media. We encourage everyone to check out Grid Network TV at Grid Network TV across Instagram, Twix, TikTok, X, and Blue Sky. There you'll see our prediction of the 4 drivers we all predict will be out of the round. But for today, Tanner, starting with you, which 4 drivers do you predict will be outside the top 12 after the Southern 500?
Well, again, I can't stress this enough. This is only where we think they'll be after this race. It's not who we think is going to get eliminated. It's just who we think will be outside looking in, going to Gateway. So, with that said and clarified, the 4 I have being out after the Southern 500 and who will be on the outside looking in going into Gateway are Austin Dillon, Ross Chastain, Shane Van Gisbergen, and Chase Elliott. I think that I kind of laid out a case for, most of the drivers in our previous question, but just to recap why I think those 4 will be out, I just don't think RCR has enough at this stage of the season for me to really give them a vote of confidence here. On top of that, I think that Ross Chastain and Trackhouse, who have an alliance with RCR, will also not have the strength to pull up both Chastain and SVG, and we'll probably end up somewhere in the middle around 13th to 21st. And then my final one out was Chase Elliott. I just think that they have had negative momentum for over a month and a half now. I mean, look at their finishes since Dover. They haven't finished better than 10th. I just don't really see a whole lot of strength out of this 9 team at this point in the season. And frankly, they are a dark horse for me to see them get bounced in the first round.
Yeah, and for me, please check out the social media graphic we did. I think they're very fun picks. Tanner and I seem to be on the same wavelength, funny enough. But make sure you guys go check that out. But for me, I will stress it the same way. This is who we think will be out after this race, not the round. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route, though. I still think Austin Dillon will be out of the top 12. I still think Alex Bowman will be out of the top 12. I just think the 5 points, he might not make it up enough, I would say. And then I will say Ross Chastain as well. And I also think it's going to be close, but I believe Austin Cindric will be that other guy who will sit 13th. I really think Josh Berry and Joey Logano will have a lot of momentum in this race just because. And then same with Tyler Reddick. It's tough. I can't tell you if that those 4 are going to be those same 4 that are going to be out because I don't think that at the end of the round. And same with Shane Van Gisbergen. I think it will take until the following race at Gateway for him to be out of the top 12. I just think the 16 points might be okay for him to be like right on the cut line come next race. But he's the driver I was alluding to earlier who does not score stage points on ovals, and I think that can come back to bite him, especially if, say, Alex Bowman. So maybe I'll teeter on that. Alex Bowman or seeing Van Gisbergen will be that one guy who probably sits 12th at the end of this race.
SVG, I mean, that would be something else. I'm looking at Austin Dillon. I think, yeah, if it comes to tire management, play his cards right, he might be up there. But I just feel like when you look at the others, I think he needs a little bit of luck on his side. Like the Penske drivers having bad luck, maybe some of the playoff drivers being involved in crashes. I think he'll be on the outside. Tyler Reddick, I think he'll be in. So then that leaves Bowman. I see Bowman potentially on the outside as well when it comes to half of them. The other 2, I think, Ross Chastain, Coca-Cola 600 was his last win. I'm not sure how he could get it done here at Darlington. He's had good runs before, but unfortunately not exactly the wins. I mean, we remember that one time he and Kyle Larson bound too hard for the win. They both ended up in the wall, took himself out. And then I'm sort of looking at either Logano, because I feel sometimes Logano's has sort of a slower start to a round. But at the same time, I know Logano could be one of those drivers where they may have been working on the Darlington setup for months now because they know they're in. Get that win, then just focus on the next round.
Knowing he and Paul Wolf, that is not out of the realm.
It's not out of the realm, so that's why I'm torn between Cindric or Logano. But if Logano has a bad day, he'll easily be outside the top 12 after the Southern 500. We'll be asking this question throughout the playoffs, and of course, encourage everyone to check out on Grid Network TV across social media our predictions of who will be eliminated by the end of the round of 16. I know approaching the start time, so let's get into pick a winner. These scores have not been updated since the start of the weekend. We know there has been some people claiming points. I know, Tanner, you have scored 2 points already. Matthew, you scored 1 point. I haven't seen what Kobe has done. We're down to the last race of the weekend. World Rally's done. F1's done. IndyCar's done. Here we come to the Southern 500 at Darlington Raceway, the Lady in Black. Tanner, starting with you to try to get 3 points. Who do you see winning the Southern 500?
Well, if you took a look at my article this morning from Pitbox Press, the NASCAR newsletter, it's where I compile all of my news that I intake within the week, as well as giving brief recaps on the races that happen. you'll already know what my pick is. But I am going with Bubba Wallace. I think that, as we alluded to in our first question, Bubba has, a penchant for rising in these moments where the pressure off of the racetrack is, kind of closing in on him and the team. And I just have a lot of confidence in the 23 team and their ability to, kind of find a really good rhythm and create a really good race car. And I just feel like, given his record at Darlington, he should be in for a really good run tonight. And I just think that in front of Michael Jordan, he's going to put on. So I have the 23 team locking themselves into the round of 12 with a victory tonight.
For me, it's tough, right? I've really, this has been one of the hardest decisions for pick a winner I think I've had to have. Because you look at history and where it repeats. I found out NASCAR Man on X or Twitter said that every time the Southern 500 has ever been run in August, it's been 3 times, a Hendrick Motorsports driver has won all 3 of them. So it makes you think. Yeah, so it was Tim Richmond, Jeff Gordon, and Terry Labonte. So that's a fun fact. Shout out to NASCAR Man on X. But then you think it's like history. What an interesting stat there. But then you think, Byron's good here, and then obviously Larson's good everywhere, it seems like. But then you look at history repeating itself, and then there's more recent history, and that is lawsuit coming out with the 2311 team and organization seeming to win after some injunction or something big breaks in this case. So I wanted to think of Hamlin. I wanted to think of Bubba, but I think instead of taking Chase Briscoe, who was my initial pick, I am going to go the route of Tyler Reddick. I believe this is his time to turn that and figure it out. Because if he can figure it out now, which he's had a really down year, I think it's really getting to him. I think if he can figure it out now, he could be a legitimate threat for rounds to come.
2 great picks. I'm going to go the route I think in theory has the easiest route to victory, but it's just unpredictable in such a long race. I'm going with the pole sitter, Denny Hamlin, to get another Southern 500 win. Oh man, I just cannot wait to hear that post-race interview. What is Matt Snyder going to ask him when he gets out? That could be a lot of fun, but I think some folks in NASCAR will be just thinking anybody but him. But we'll be following that situation, of course, throughout the week. After this busy weekend of us at Portland International Raceway, we still have a lot of programming left to go. Tomorrow, Grid Life Wrap-Up, Grid Encore. Then we got Grid tonight. Then we do it all over again for the next race weekend, Gateway. It's going to be a lot of fun. Subscribe to us right here on YouTube at Grid Network TV. Matthew will have his article on the race. I think tomorrow, just because of the timing, we'll see how it all works out with everyone's schedule. But across social media at Grid Network TV, of course, Grid Ranking, Grid Endurance Performance Index, and pick a winner each and every week to participate with us. And a big thank you to our Patreon investors calling the show, Mark, Robin, David, and Matthew, for investing in the Grid Network each and every month. With that said, we want to thank everyone for tuning in today. We'll see you Monday on the conclusion of the Southern 500. For Tanner or Matthew, I'm Joe. Thank you so much. Enjoy the race.